This movie is insane. Let's talk about it. What's up, Flick fans? Any conspiracy theorists in the house? I hate labeling people that because everyone has something that you kind of believe is true even though you don't want to admit it. I'd love to hear yours, or just one that you find interesting in the comments down below. This is a safe space. Please, I want to hear it. I want to name examples, but I'm afraid YouTube will see this and be like, no, bye-bye.
All we've lost, all that's been done to us, we're setting that right again.
And so in Bugonia, two conspiracy-obsessed young men kidnap the high-powered CEO of a major company convinced that she is an alien intent on destroying planet Earth. I kid you not, it feels like one of those ideas I would have come up with in college, like, oh, that would be a cool movie, but nobody would ever actually make that. Well, actually, this is based on a different film called Save the Green Planet, a 2003 South Korean sci-fi comedy that I wish I would have watched before seeing this. It's a very similar premise when you start to compare the two, but obviously this is Yorgos Lanthimos. This is Emma Stone, Jesse Plemmons, a phenomenal cast, not a huge cast, but everyone that's in it is good. Even Aiden Delbus, who plays Don, and Don's the type of character that's just kind of weaseled into this situation, doesn't really know how to escape the confines of this crazy cousin that has this theory that this very high-powered CEO, someone who has a stronghold on a lot of people, is from another planet. Now, I believe that about a lot of people. No, I'm just kidding. Stone's character is the type of person who says, actually, here's how I would rationally approach this situation. Plemmons, he's just not wired in that way. Now, something traumatic happened that put him into this mindset, and that's what kind of sets us off on our past, and we slowly start to learn what that is. That's why I'm not telling you in this video, and it becomes a little more interesting in that way. But a lot of this is the conversation between Stone's character and Plemmons' character, and then poor cousin just kind of standing in the background holding a shotgun. And I'm thinking going into this film, how is this conversation between this health-conscious, highbrow CEO and this weird conspiracy guy who works in a warehouse with a chip on his shoulder, how is that going to be interesting? As I clean my glasses, there it is. Still dirty. I was trying to put in a photo so you wouldn't see it, but behind the scenes, I guess, still dirty. Son of a bitch! And they're both playing mind games with each other all throughout this film, trying to escalate and de-escalate situations, realizing that they will never be on the same page with their ideas, ideals, or ideologies, words that begin with I'd. But what I found this movie to be ultimately was a profound and honest, yet strange, examination of the human mind and how we are all obviously wired differently, whether it be by class or religion or, many things factor into these two characters, their lives and where they are, and frankly, where they are headed all throughout this entire film. But you get to see that come to a head, and you get to see a guy who is truly convinced that this woman is an alien, hold her hostage, and basically spell this entire thing out. But he also wants honesty back from her. He wants her to admit that she's from another planet. She's just like, you know what? And at points in the film, she's like, should I play along? Should I just sit and argue? Like, how would I respond back to this? And how does my upbringing kind of counteract what this guy is trying to do? And as this movie progressed, I went from thinking this is a strange idea to I am encapsulated. I am so on board with what you are feeding me right now. Well, really, got to shout out all the people involved with the original movie screenplay, but Will Tracy, who wrote the screenplay, Yorgos Lanthimos, who clearly is going to play a big part into why this movie is so successful, but implementing those visuals that we are so accustomed to with the wide angles and some of these shots and how the camera moves, the cinematography, and then this score, this crazy, intense sci-fi score that feels like it was made for an actual alien invasion movie, that feels like it was made for a giant blockbuster, but we get it behind these conversations in confined spaces, like such a counterintuitive score until you actually start to think about it, a color palette that is so heavy on saturation, the choice to make this film with this specific aspect ratio, like all of these decisions that you wouldn't think would come together to create something fascinating. That's the word I want to use here. It is a fascinating experience, a fun experience, one that leans so heavily into the conspiracy theory guy or girl that has an idea or construct that, a lot of people would think is crazy, outlandish. Emma Stone's character thinks she's crazy in this movie, but the film almost leans into that and doesn't completely make him look and say, well,
this is a load of barnacles.
I heard that!
And Plemmons, he's dead set on proving this theory to be true. It's not a theory to him, it's a fact. And say what you will about his character, this is the unwavering faith that we and he so intensely believes to be true, and these two performances. I can't believe it took me this long to get here. Emma Stone is incredible. I mean, she captures the essence of what someone like this would be and acts like, the CEO that is so disconnected from our reality. And you would think that would be the conspiracy theorist, but Plemmons' character has kind of this faith in humanity, like I said. Like, he believes in good, and he believes that we should exist and I guess in a way kind of coexist, but he has this vendetta against someone in her position. But at the same time, you have someone like her who you're rooting for because she's in this bad position, yet there is a disconnect from where this guy is, the middle class guy, the guy who works in a warehouse, to her. But then again, we're dealing with some things throughout here, and then an ending that will probably prove to be divisive, that is such a massive disconnect compared to a film like Poor Things, compared to The Favorite, that has more of kind of these themes that feel more uplifting, more comedic. We can laugh a bit more, the banter, the dialogue. And this has this instilled in there because it is a dark comedy by nature, but it's also very intense. You're on the edge of your seat. It is occasionally bloodier than I expected. It's occasionally more violent than I expected, and it becomes more by the end. And that's what I'm curious to see where people fall. Now, I, for one, again, to give you insight, I was loving this journey. I was completely on board, enraptured by the mystery of it all, but also how is she going to finagle her way out of here? And then we start to hit some subplots that, if I am to name a weak link of this film, I have two things for you that I didn't love about this movie, and I'm still trying to decide where I fall. There is a subplot with a police officer that it feels important, but the script never quite makes it important enough. There is something there that's very obvious, and they hit on it numerous times, but we don't really explore it. Then we have the ending, which I'm not going to spoil in this review, but there is a slight disconnect in how we got there. So there is something that happens at the main end of this film where you can start to see how they're getting there. Again, not going to spoil it, but there was a disconnect for me, like there could have been something more planted along the way, or the film could have leaned a bit more into those ideas to give us a little more information. And I do enjoy how ambiguous that is. I like the ending. Just in case you're wondering, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But if I am to, sit and think about it and try to rationalize it in my brain, my only qualm is maybe one more scene, something to tie it in together. And it feels like we hit that ending so quickly. If we would have more subtly went into it, I feel like that would have been more impactful as well. Regardless, not that I want this movie to be 2.5 hours. That's not the case. I think the runtime is perfect. The journey of how we get there is so intense and edge of your seat. This is one of my favorite Yorgos Lanthimos films. I definitely like it more than Kinds of Kindness. I did not really like that film. And I believe I like it more than Poor Things. It's just a more interesting subject. I like the idea of diving into these conspiracy theories, not just one, but they hit on a couple with some visuals and imagery throughout. And then where they ultimately take this film was, while I could have used something more, really interesting. And really just, I have words, I just don't want to use them.
What do you mean by that?
Before I give you my score, what is your favorite Yorgos Lanthimos film? I might do a little short ranking on this channel. Be on the lookout, YouTube Shorts. Drop a like on this video, leave your comment, all of those things. This is a movie worth talking about, so please talk about it down below. Bugonia is a strange, albeit honest examination of the human mind and a look at how trauma can dictate decision-making. At the same time, this is an often insane dark comedy and kept me on the edge of my seat and provided one of the most fascinating experiences of the year. Lanthimos is in his bag. The visuals, cinematography, and ability to get the best out of two top-tier actors. Where we ultimately wind up will frustrate some, but the way this film approaches this journey was far more entertaining than even I expected. I did not expect to say I love this, but I loved this movie. I thought it was great. Do I think it's Best Picture worthy? I mean, worthy, yeah, but with the type of film that it is and where it goes at the end, I ultimately believe it misses for Best Picture. I wouldn't have said that before watching because it's Yorgos Lanthimos. I think Stone gets in, maybe Plemmons, but the movie itself, it just doesn't feel like a Best Picture type of film. Regardless, I still enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. See you soon.